Hello everyone and welcome to our UX webinar hosted by Nick Hudson, our Head of Technical here at Digital Ethos. I'm Luke Tobin, I'm the Managing Director. I'm going to do a very quick introduction to Digital Ethos, who we are and what we offer, and then Nick's going to take over and go through some of the UX principles that help websites to perform. One thing that we're going to do a little bit later as well as we move through the webinar is offer you a chance to send us some of your websites, and we'll do a live review with you on some of your websites, which we thought would be a really useful use of the time. Next slide, please. So who are Digital Ethos? Digital Ethos are the UK's fastest growing digital marketing agency. What that really means is that we're managing to scale pretty rapidly, and I think the reason for that is that we're retaining customers, and we've got a sort of USP that stands out. And really what we say is that we like to act as an extension of customers' core teams. So really understanding what the DNA of a business is, what their objectives are, what they're trying to achieve, and then working in a sort of a synced way to produce marketing results. Currently the team is at 22 members, a whole range of different backgrounds from all sorts of different agency backgrounds, Google, etc. So a wealth of knowledge that we're able to bring to presentations like this. Next slide, please. And a few of the customers we've worked with, a few you'll recognise, some household names here, a few local ones as well to our head office in Leicester. A lot of our work sort of differs between strategy to audits through to full campaigns that we manage as well for all sorts of different marketing principles, from SEO, PPC, social media, digital PR, etc. More recently, we've started working on sort of more traditional marketing channels as well, including TV, etc. So a real range there of use cases. Next slide, please. So just a little bit about the webinar. Automatically, all of your mics are muted, so please keep it that way until the end. If there's anything then that you want to say or any message that you want to post, there is a Q&A question box on the right-hand side. If you can just pop messages in there or any questions ready for the Q&A session, that would be fantastic. What we'll do at the end of this anyway is send over a recording of the video. We'll send up some follow-up notes, some bits that you can sort of take away and start working on yourselves. We've got a really nice list of tools and blogs and bits of resources for you to revisit as well. And obviously then if you do need us, you know, we're on the phone. Next slide, please. Today's panel consists of, we thought it would be good to sort of bring in a bit of a balanced mix really to marketing. So I'm here from a managing director point of view. I've got a good handle on the commercial side of marketing. Nick, obviously head of technical, who you're going to get to know pretty well in a few minutes. Rachel is one of our social consultants. She also works as a team lead here at Digital Ethos, so she's got a wealth of knowledge she can bring. And Michael's our head of PPC and search. So anything that's related to search marketing, we can answer. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, please don't forget to use the question function. More questions, the better. If there are websites you want us to review live, put us to the test. We'll be up for the challenge. I'm going to hand over to Nick now, and he'll look after you for the rest of the presentation. Thanks.
Thanks, Luke. So what is UX? I'm hoping everyone can see my slides. I've just had a message saying that not everybody can see them. So I might just pop on your chat questions. Can you just add a question in there if you can't see the slide? Just send us a question quickly. I just want to make sure that everyone can see what I'm talking about. There should be a little section on the side of this just to send us a message, and it should appear straight away. So just let us know if you can't, and I'll see if I can sort it out.
Nick, as well, just underneath the mic and the camera icon, there is that green tab that sits there. That should be green as well. Is that green on your screen?
It is, yes.
Okay.
Brilliant. Okay, so nobody's asked the question yet, so I'm going to jump straight in. What is UX? User experience in a nutshell. Products have users, and the user experience is simply the experience a user has from using that particular product. So far, so good. Sounds pretty broad, and that's because it is. It encompasses a lot of different elements. UX design is the art of designing products so they provide the optimum possible user experience. In this instance, our product is our website. Building the ultimate UX encompasses an understanding of psychology, interaction design, and user research. The psychology element of UX really interests me, the way people interact, the way people use websites. You would think that everybody used a website the same, but from doing user testing previously, watching people like stood behind them use a site and asking them to perform a simple action, sometimes it baffles me what people think. So not everything that you think is going to work works. People really interpret things in different ways. The elements of UX, so psychology, like I say, people all think differently. You can design a layout that appeals to really technical people, for example, but then you miss out all of the people that are not familiar with the products, have not visited your site before. It could be the first time they've ever been to your site. They want to explore, they want to understand what your services are, your products, or they might only have a small amount of time to make a decision. So think about the different levels of understanding that your users have got of you, your products and services, and make sure that the customer journey is there for all of them. So explain things simply, have a more detailed explanation of things available if they're an experienced user or they're familiar with the product or service. Interaction design as well. So I had a chat with Rachel about this earlier. My analogy for this is a toaster. So when you use a toaster, you do it instinctively. There are no real sort of labels on a toaster that says, put your bread in here, press this lever down, press this button to defrost your toast. It's all iconography. So there might be a little sort of icicle next to the defrost button. There's a slider that's obvious that when you push the slider down, your bread goes into the bay and then it starts cooking. That's the kind of level of obviousness, if you like, that we want to achieve through great UX and great web design. There's a great book that I've put on here called Don't Make Me Think by Steve Krug. These 4 words you kind of have to apply to everything, and it's pretty much what we say whenever we're given a site to UX review. It's like, well, if I've got to think about it, then it's already too complicated. When you create a website, you're asking for people's time. You're asking for a commitment from them to explore it, to click, to interact, to browse through different pages. It's a commitment, a very tiny one, admittedly. It's not hard to scroll through a page or click a few links, but the more things that you're asking a web visitor to do, the more commitment you're asking for them, and the less likely they are to stay if the experience is not great. So if it's a great UX, if it feels good, if it looks good, if it's obvious what the things do, people are likely to commit more to exploring that journey further. User research as well. Gather data on your assumptions and approach it scientifically. There's loads of ways to sort of gather data on that, which I'll go through in a little while. But just asking the people that are around you to give you feedback on things, particularly people that haven't seen your website before. A good way of doing this is asking family members, particularly older family members as well, because if it has to be explained what people need to do when they go on a site, then it's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult UX to navigate and to work out what the site does. So use somebody that hasn't got much experience with the internet, and they will tell you exactly what's wrong with it. You can watch them actually clicking things and go, oh, I don't know what this does. That's a great free way of finding out how well your site works. Great UX design comes from knowing your customers. So user personas, this is a task that we carry out on a lot of our digital marketing campaigns as well. In an ideal world, if we were designing a site from scratch, we would ask for all of your sales data for the entirety of your business's life. We'd ask for all of your customer data, who they are, where they work, what their job position is, how much they spent, and from that data we'd start constructing some ideas of different segments of your audience that we can then start designing for. So rather than a one-size-fits-all approach, you design different sections of the website to appeal to different types of users. So they could be buying behaviors. Are they customers that are only going to buy from you once, or are they likely to come back? Goals, what is their goal? Do they just want something quick and cheap, or are they buying into a subscription service? What are their pain points? How can we solve their problems first? And that's a really important one, which features pretty much throughout UX. How can we solve the user's problems first before we ask for any other sort of commitment? How do we demonstrate that as well? So building these user personas will allow us to then start designing a site based on our ultimate segmented users. There may be like 4 or 5 different personas that we target, and we find a best fit to work to all of those. What do your visitors want? They want to feel good. They want to feel good about using the site. They want to feel like it's a really nice experience, easy to use. They want simplicity. Can I scan this website and know what you do in 5 seconds or less? The average time that people make a judgment on your website is 5 seconds. And one of the things that we look at when we're doing SEO campaigns is how fast is your website? How quickly does it load? How quickly can you see the first elements on that page? Even if it's just the title and the top image while everything else loads, that's a great start. But generally 5 seconds is all that people spend scanning a page and working out if they're in the right place. Organization. So is the information presented with a clear hierarchy with indicators to show this? I've got an example coming up where I'll show you where hierarchy hasn't been implemented correctly. But generally, if you're familiar with web design or creating documents, you would have your main heading as quite a large font, your subheading slightly smaller, and then any offshoot topics or bullet points of that would be a smaller heading. And you would stick to that format throughout. That shows a hierarchy of information. This is more important. This is secondary to that. And then the smaller bits underneath it are bullet points or further reading. Feeling important. Are you simply asking people to contact you when they get there? Are all of your calls to action on your site just contact us, fill out a form, phone us, give us your details? Or are you solving their problems first? Are you demonstrating that this is what our product does, this is how it can save you time or money, or it can change the way that your company works or operates? What is it? What is the problem that we're solving? And get them engaged first before you ask for their contact details. Demonstrate everything. Show that you're trusted by a number of other businesses, that the product works, that you've got some social proof in there, so reviews of people that have used the site, the service or product before. People want to know where they are as well. So if you imagine the top bar of your website is called the navigation bar, is it easy to navigate? Once you've clicked through to a second or third page, is it obvious whereabouts you are in the site? Is there an indicator there that says you are here, you are on this category, on this subcategory, on this offshoot topic, so that it's easy to get back to where they might want to find more information? Breadcrumbs is a primary example of that. And choice. Users want choice. They want to know what their next steps are. So what do I need to move further down that marketing funnel and become a customer? So you all know that the top of the funnel is awareness. It might be the first time that they visited your site. So in that case, they're new to who you are, to what you do. How do you educate them, inform them, and give them some things to do that will help them make an informed decision and possibly come back a bit further down in the consideration stage. People with new websites. I've previously worked for a web development agency. I've spent 10 or 11 years as a web developer. This is one bit of the feedback that we've heard from a lot of people in my time in digital. My website's new, shouldn't it already have great UX? The answer is not necessarily. Web designers aren't marketers, and they rarely get given all of those user personas, all the historical sales data, all of your A/B tests from previously, all of the information that would allow us to make those decisions. To work out the best solution, we apply these same methods as any digital marketing campaign. I'm just going to check on some of the comments. I'm just making sure everyone's got access to the slides. Yes, I will give you access to the slides to download at the end. And we do report on all of our UX audits as well. So I'm going to move on to our main element of UX, which is to test, analyze, and optimize. This is really the only way we find out whether something works. We apply all of our knowledge and experience into building sites so that we generally tick off all of the things that we would expect to see on a website. But only when you start to use that site do you understand that there might be slight nuances in how people consume your website and what is important to people. The thing that you think is important may not be to somebody else, and you'll see that in analytics. How do we understand the way that people use our websites? There's a ton of ways that we can measure that. Analytics is great. It's very basic in that you can see what pages people have been to. You can see whether they visit a page from Google and bounce. So basically they'll go back to Google. It's not a best fit for them. We can use Tag Manager. You can set up tags on every element of your page. So whether it's a button, whether it's an image, whether it's a link, we can track all of that. You can also see scroll depth as well, how far down the page somebody has scrolled, to evaluate whether your page is too long, whether you need to move information further up to the top of the page because this is the bit that's going to sell your product. We can use Hotjar. There's a sort of screenshot of Hotjar here. This allows you to create heat maps on your website to see which bits of your pages are hottest, i.e. which get most interaction. So you can do clicks, you can do scroll depth, and of course user feedback. So whether that's pop-ups, how can we help? Is there anything that you've missed today? Are there any questions that you've got about what we offer? Conversion rates, again, I think this is probably the most obvious thing. How do we understand the way people use our websites? Well, if it's not converting, then something's wrong. Then we need to start user testing. So we'll look at this from our own perspective, and we'll look for things like non-converting pages, forms that never get filled, high bounce rate, user feedback, conversion rates, short page scrolling, rage clicking or mouse scrubbing. That's where people will move their mouse across the screen because they're unhappy with what they're being presented with. And you can see this in the recordings in Hotjar. When people start doing that, it's because they're frustrated. And rage clicking is just when they click off. Clicks where users expect something to happen. So if you go back to this heat map here, you may have seen that there's actual clicks on some of the text here as well. So are people looking for links to further information? That's something that we can explore as well. Repeated drop-offs from a funnel of pages. So we can set up a funnel that shows you which pages have been visited and where people drop off in that user journey. And finally, missing trust factors. So if you've worked for NHS or Coffin Warehouse or Accurus or whoever, and you're not shouting about that, then why should people trust your reviews or what you're saying? So get those logos pretty high up on the page, show that people have got a trust in you, and that people are willing to invest in you. You know, it's much better than John W says he really likes your widgets. If you've got somebody that's like John W, head of procurement for the NHS, that's a much stronger trust factor that's going to encourage people to stay on your site, to explore it, and they know that they're going to get a great product. Some common UX mistakes: too much text in one place, mixture of uppercase, lowercase, different fonts. It can all be confusing, off-putting. There's no hierarchy of information. I've used an example here of lots of different fonts going on. What is the heading? Is this the most important bit? Would this be in the secondary bit? Is this an extension of this? There's a lot going on. Then you've got another font here as well. When people are scanning a website, they don't tend to read really in depth. They'll just look at every line, or you know, occasional lines. They actually follow like a swirl pattern when they're looking at your website. So your eyes will move from one side of the page up and around, and you kind of got to attract them to the bits that are the most important. Buttons that aren't descriptive of the desired result. So if I've got a button anywhere on your page, I want to know exactly what I'm going to get for clicking that button. Learn more. What does that give me? Does it download a product or a file? Does it give me a PDF? Is it going to take me to the About Us page? Is it going to take me to their most popular category? Having something more substance, like download your free guide here. Again, it's good for UX because you know exactly what the outcome is going to be. And it's also good for SEO because you're creating anchor text that refers to the next page or resource that you're linking to. So it works in two ways for that. Design over substance as well. Animations that don't tell a story. This is particularly an issue with people that are short on time, that are signing up for things like software or subscriptions, things like that, because they're already short on time. They're buying into a product that is to save them time, save them money. They don't want to be wowed by having to wait for things to load on the page. When they scroll, they want the information to be instant. So give them that instant experience. And if you're using animation, only use it to demonstrate a concept. So to take something really technical and to make that simplified so that everybody can understand it. Another UX mistake, hard sells. So again, this goes back to contact us now. Give us your information, give us your email or your phone number. An analogy I like to use for this is meeting somebody in a pub. So if you're in a pub and you meet somebody, the first thing you say when you go up to them isn't, can I have your phone number or can I have your email, unless you want to take them on a date. So generally you'd find out what their problems were first, like open a conversation, ask them questions, try and work out what their pain points are first before offering them a solution. Long lists, no one reads massive lists of stuff on service pages. I think, again, it goes back to spending 5 to 7 seconds on a page. It's great to have all the information there, but do you really need it to sell something? Sell the benefits, not the features. That was something I was taught a long time ago, and it still sticks now. How can this improve what you're already doing, rather than, oh, but it's got this feature and it's also available in white. Well, brilliant, great. Not knowing your customers. So had a conversation with somebody not long ago about their business, and I just asked them outright, what's your average customer look like? And they said, well, we sell to everyone. Oh, okay, how do we market to everyone? The answer is you can't. unless you've got millions to spend. Generally, with any marketing campaigns, we will identify some niche areas, some segments of your audience that we can create campaigns for. So again, this goes back to sort of research. Who are your customers and how can we deliver them an experience that's going to encourage them to stay? What makes a good website? Pretty colors? No. I'm actually colorblind, so colors don't mean much to me. There is actually a site I've included in our links at the end of this presentation that allows you to test your website as colorblind people would see it. Generally, it just means that the contrast is quite different. So we have a standard test that we use for a lot of accepted principles in UX design. It comprises of a huge checklist that allows us to go through your website and go, right, okay, are repetitive actions or frequent activities effortless? Can users easily recover from errors? If they've submitted a form and something goes wrong, are they told what's gone wrong so that they can rectify it? You've seen sometimes on forms where your field that you're filling out has a little red dot at the top, and it shoots you back up to the top of the form to fill out the bit you've missed. Are they adequately supported according to the level of expertise? Again, this goes back to having different levels of expertise on your site. If I was to explain this really simply, what would that look like? If there's an expert in this field on the site, what important information are they going to know? Things like, some of these are quite basic, like, is your mail icon an actual envelope? Because it's accepted. People have used the web and smartphones and things like that for years now. They've come to expect these things. Burger menu, that's the 3 little dots in the top right hand of your screen when you view a website on your mobile. Does it really need to be used on desktop? Are people that are using desktop apps more likely to expect to see a full-size navigation? Does your menu button look how people would expect it to look on a mobile? And things like logo click takes you home. I've visited websites where you click the logo and it's taking me to a completely different page. Like, no, I want to go back to your home page. That's what people have come to expect. And again, going back to the buttons, make your buttons look like buttons and keep them the same font and color and shape throughout your site. People expect consistency. Top 5 elements that we think make a good website. Concise value proposition. This is not a slogan, but a lot of people sometimes fall at the first hurdle with this, and they'll create some sort of marketing slogan that says we are innovative providers of creative solutions for refuse disposal. Like, if I've got to decipher what it is you're trying to say, you've already used up 4 of those 5 seconds. So make it simple. Important options above the fold. Imagine any website as like a leaflet, a fold-out leaflet. So the bit that you can see on your screen before you start scrolling is the front of that leaflet. So give them all of the actions that they need to take above the fold, or at least a small selection of ones where you want to direct them. So give them a value proposition, give them a call to action, either a contact form, a link to find out more information. Add some personalization as well. Again, this goes back to showing how your product solve the problem. So lead with that. Show them that this is what it does, rather than these are the features. Make it easy to explore if they landed on a blog or a service page, because not everybody starts their journey on your homepage. So if they land on a blog or service page, they should have the same experience as everybody else that starts on a homepage. Why would you put less effort into your blog pages or your gallery page or frequently asked questions? Because they're equally as important as the rest of the site. And show people the benefits. What do I need in order to become a customer? Usability, again, this is part of our sort of UX testing. In a nutshell, it's, does your website work? Its effectiveness, efficiency, engagingness, error tolerance, ease of learning, These are all elements that we would test, like does your search bar work? How fast is your search bar? Does it take me to a results page, or does it show me the results in a sort of drop-down mega menu? How effective is that as a concept for getting people to the right pages? Do you need to work on that? Is it clickable? Do you get the result that you desire? Which leads us to the sort of almost the final bit, is conversion rate optimization. This is a concept that we apply that uses UX to improve your conversion rate. So it may be that you're getting a ton of traffic, but you're not necessarily converting everybody that lands there. The reality is you'll probably get about 2% of that traffic convert into a lead. One way that you can improve this is by creating soft calls to action. So rather than asking for the contact details and things like that, you give them resources that you can get their email from. Why not download a quick guide to this, sharing information, giving them an opportunity to interact, but not necessarily inquire. First step of that is we test and analyze, so identify what the problem is. Again, we can use all of the tools at our disposal to work out where things are going wrong. We can conduct peer research, user surveys, and start heat mapping. And then we can start to theorize, gather all this information, all this data, and look for common denominators. Avoid trying to make your theory fit as well. So, well, everyone dropped off the blog because they visited there some point, so the blog must be the problem. Well, not necessarily. You need to identify why they visited the blog. Was that related to the service page that they've just visited? They wanted to find out more information about the particular service. Look at the whole journey and try and work out why people have visited certain pages, in what order, what the problems are. Then you can start A/B testing to prove or disprove your theory. So what A/B testing does is it allows you to create a duplicate of any page with some changes to it. Once you've created this duplicate of a page, you can then start making changes that you think might improve that user experience. So moving content further up the page, that's important. Having a CTA, a call to action at the top, so that people have got something to click or to further their journey and their information research. It may be that there's too much information on the page or long lists. Reduce it down, make it shorter, make it punctual, succinct, but still informative with some actions to take. Once you've created that B version of your page, you can run both of them at the same time, and plugins like Neilio, or you can use software like Optimizely or Google Marketing Platform. You can use these to serve both pages 50% of the time. So sometimes when you visit your site, you'll see the original page, other times you'll see the optimized page, and then you've really got the data behind your ideas and your theories to support where you think people are going wrong. How to improve your UX. Mike, I think it'd be good to sort of get you involved in this as well. So research and documentation, looking at your biggest competitors. The best have usually already invested in this work themselves. Companies the size of Gymshark, for example, or some of the sort of big corporates, Nike and Adidas, for example, they will have plowed hundreds of thousands of pounds into all of this research already. They'll have done all the user testing. They'll have A/B tested category pages, product pages, landing pages, and they'll have already applied all of that research. So take inspiration from other people's websites. Nothing has been, is new. Nothing's a new idea. It's all been tried and tested. Mike, I think landing pages for PPC are sort of quite a key element of UX design, and one that I know you're sort of quite hot on. what sort of advice could you give on great landing page design that applies some of the concepts we talked about and some you sort of know yourself?
Yeah, definitely. Landing page not only falls into how many people convert, especially from a paid aspect like Google, it also falls into, well, it can, how often Google is actually going to show your ads. So that being said, people come to expect a certain amount when they're looking for a product or service. So if you take an e-commerce platform, for example, people are coming to expect that they can add to a wish list, they can add to basket, they can get the price, they can get delivery costs, they can get everything that they've come to expect over the years of using online. Now, with recent situations as well, forcing a lot more people to shop online, now's a great time to start to invest into the UX, because you've got a larger audience now who may not have been shopping online before, but now will also come to expect what they're seeing with a lot of people. So in terms of landing pages, what you should follow is definitely a lot of things that Nick's been talking about before, making sure that your value proposition is as high as possible. There's an old saying which people don't buy from companies, people buy solutions. They don't care how many features your product has if it doesn't solve their issue. And this is where audience personas has come to life in a way, because if people only stay on your site for a couple of seconds, they need to know that your site solves their issue. And if you're boasting about all the features you do, but you don't actually say what those features accomplish, then you're just a part of another group of competitors who will probably end up getting a low amount of conversion. Other areas such as highlighting specific call to actions, making it easy for that person to navigate the page, making it so that if, depending on how they come through the site, if they've never heard of you before, that you're not overloading them with information, or you're not serving them too little information that they click off the site not actually knowing what you do. It's about using other people as well and looking at your site, because you can spend hours on your landing pages making sure that you think they're right, but someone else may think completely different. So it's getting that other person's perspective.
Thanks, Mike. So,
no problem.
So one of the ways that you can start to do your research as well and inspect how your site looks, you can use developer tools in Chrome. Just press F12 on your keyboard. You can see how your screen looks or your pages look to different devices. One of the things that gets overlooked in landing pages for PPC ads is how pages look on mobile. I would say 60%, is it still 60-40 on mobile browsing versus desktop? 60% of users still use mobiles for their first sort of contact with you. So how your page looks on mobile and on different devices as well is really key to that. Compare it against your analytics, see what pages have got the highest bounce rate, for example, and also counting how many clicks. You can count how many interactions it takes to get to a specific piece of information. And the aim of good UX and good usability is to reduce that number. So there's a minimum amount of clicks required to actually get to what people need. So that brings us to a sort of Q&A session. Luke, I might sort of hand this back over to you.
Sure.
How do I do this? I know I'm head of technical, but I don't know how to use GoToWebinar.
You can just keep the screen on, it's fine. I'll just tell you when to move. So I've seen a few questions popping up on the right hand side as we've gone through. As I mentioned at the start, if any of you have questions or if there's a website that you'd like us to do a sort of live review of, Nick can pop that on the screen and we can go through and do that with you now. And that's just the question box on the right hand side of the screen. Nick, next slide, please. So just to recap on the panel, obviously I'm here as the MD. Nick, you all know now. Rachel, from a social perspective, if there's any socially led questions, then that would be great. And Mike, you just heard from, obviously, is paid search. So let's have a quick look at what's come through so far. So some questions around sort of, will we share some of the follow-up? Absolutely. We'll send through a list of the tools that Nick's mentioned that you can use to look at all the different principles mentioned. We'll also send this video as well, so you've got this as an asset to revisit and replay as many times as you want to hear Nick's voice. And then from Patrick here, there's clearly a lot of work that goes into research. When you start working with a business to find out their target audience goals and their message, how long does it take Digital Ethos to run an audit on a new business, and what kind of costings would be involved in this process?
I think the answer to that is, how much do you want to spend? We can do an audit that kind of covers all of the basics, including user testing through just ourselves. So we give the site to all of the team to review, collate that information, and put together a sort of an overview in a day, which will be charged at a day rate. That will give you a lot of core takeaways and actions that we think are going to apply just to sort of basic UX principles, really. So utilizing space effectively, making sure that there's no huge gaps at the top of the page, or that titles or headings, for example, are not hogging space, that text is sort of spaced well enough from each other. There's a ton of tests that we'd go through as our sort of primary set of tests. But I suppose we could spend as long as a week on it and put together a full UX strategy that incorporates a lot of usability testing, so we can use people outside of our organization on things like Usability Hub, User Crowd, and we can get impartial feedback from people. I think it's like $50 or something for a set number of user tests that we will construct to get impartial feedback that says, well, okay, I've used this element of the site, it doesn't work as expected. Then we can start collecting that data. So the answer is, we could spend a day on it, we could spend a week on it, or we could spend a few weeks on it and gather all of our data, resources, tests, customer surveys. It's really an ongoing solution, which we probably recommend every 3 to 6 months, some UX testing or some reviews, because generally nobody's website stays the same forever. It evolves. You create new products, new services. You might find that people aren't using the pages how you'd expect. So when you do conversion rate optimization, you might fix one page and think, well, I need to roll this out to other pages as well because it makes sense. So your site's constantly evolving, which means that your UX strategy is continually going to change, and people's requirements change as well throughout that time. So yeah, it's how much do you want to spend on it? How much information do you need? Generally, a few days worth of information and some tests that we can review after a number of weeks will give you a good head start.
Thanks, Nick. There's one here that says, is there a way of testing what might work on your own site through other marketing channels? That might be interesting, an interesting one. So reviewing other people's websites potentially, or looking at just other marketing channels that might help feed in on this.
Not quite sure I understand the question there, Lee.
So I'm trying to direct it really because we've got Rach on the call and Mike as well. Is there any other learnings you could get from other channels that would help then make decisions as far as what UX would work for your own business?
Okay, yeah, I think I kind of understand the question. I think the biggest thing when it comes to other channels, especially if it's paid social, paid cost per click, whatever it may be, the learnings you get from them are real people in a sense. If you narrow down your target audience to the point where it's them looking for your product or services, say you're a software as a service company and what you're getting is a lot of traffic through relevant keywords, have a look at what, use a tool like Hotjar and see how they're interacting with your site. With software as a service, a lot of people now expect things like pricing to be listed very clearly. And if you're a company that doesn't list pricing, then you need to have a look at, okay, is there something that we can achieve there? But I think that going back, the biggest thing is just test. With something like Facebook or Google display ads, for example, it's very cheap to start driving traffic to your site, and it's very hard at the beginning when you're not getting too much traffic to make those informed decisions. So I'd say even if you're spending up to say 50 to 100 pounds or so, just test, get that traffic to your site and see how they analyze with your website. Because at the end of the day, it's live data. It's not your mate sitting next to you saying do this based off gut feeling. It's data driven, and then you can make their changes from a data perspective. I think the biggest thing with any landing pages or any changes you do to a page, I've got an analogy where it says start with the forest, then the trees, then the branches and the leaves. So if your page isn't really converting and it's doing nothing, change a lot of things, and then over time start diving down into the small things. So you may change the layout right at the start, but in the end what you'll be doing is changing colors on call to action buttons to see how much of an effect they have. It really starts broad, and then over time you can narrow that down.
That's great, thanks Mike. One here as well around sort of how often do you think you should just rebuild a site and start again?
How long's a piece of string? I mean, does it work? If it works, why fix something that isn't broken? But I think people are more demanding nowadays, and you kind of need to work with that. People's demands are getting higher and higher. Technology is evolving really quickly. The things that you can accomplish on websites in terms of animations, graphics, APIs, interactive elements, calculators, pulling information from different sources, creating, using the data layer to update information in real time, personalization of websites, so remembering people that have visited before and customizing their experience based on their cookies or their previous buys. One thing we do quite a lot with PPC as well is using things like custom sections on websites that use tracking cookies to see what sort of places you visited before, and then recommending products based on your buying history. So this really adds a level of personalization. I think the answer to your question, how often should you update a website? I suppose as much as possible. If you want to stay on top of your game, if you want to appear that you're a legitimate business and that you're investing in your customers and your web users, then yeah, as much as possible. Websites look dated really quickly, but if you're constantly spending time on that, evolving the way your site looks and feels, there shouldn't really be that sort of harsh update of, oh, we've suddenly changed everything. It should be an evolution rather than a sort of complete redesign.
That's great, thanks Nick. And one more here I think for you that says, do you think these principles differ depending on the industry in B2B like healthcare, fintech, etc.?
Absolutely not. At the end of the day, you're still going to have people that are different levels of expertise. They're going to be right top funnel, so you're going to have to explain things quite simply, walk people through, take baby steps to explain why your product can help them or your service can help them, and you're going to get people that are more familiar with your products, services, and even your business, who can dive straight into the more complex questions like sort of calculation-based questions like, okay, how many? If I get this many users, how much is it going to cost me? If I get, if I do this, you know, the sort of questions that you would ask as part of your sales process. So I don't think it differs for any industry. I think probably one of the only industries I can think of that it would differ slightly are things like mechanical industries, parts, machinery, things like that, because generally those sort of industries require a lot of technical knowledge. I suppose you could apply the same to things like development, coding, anything that's a super niche sort of discipline, then you can afford to dive in a little bit more with some more detailed information. But generally, the principles are the same. Just keep things simple, explain things really clearly. Don't confuse people. Give people choices to find out more information. It should be applicable to all industries.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much. That completes. Oh no, we've got a couple more that have popped up.
Calculators for websites. Why so expensive? Because it's custom logic. So a basic calculator will allow you to add, multiply, subtract, divide, and it's fairly basic logic. The majority of calculators for websites and businesses are based on your own information. So it might be, I've got this product, but it is made up of 5 different pieces that are then used for other products as well. So the calculators have to use custom logic to work out, well, how much of these parts have I got in stock to make this product? What is the line value of that? It's all the customization that goes into it. Christy says, we've had our website for some time. I think it needs a lot of work. Do you think it's better to try and work from what you've got or create a whole new website? The risk is when you create a new website, if you're not doing it with marketing in mind, you could lose a lot of your SEO organic rankings. So always work with a company that have got a bit of marketing clout that can help you retain some of those rankings when your website gets redesigned, because headings change, layouts change, some of the content might be reworded. Do I think it's better to try and work from what you've got? It depends how modern it looks. How does it make people feel when they get there? Run some tests on it, add Hotjar, see where people are clicking on the site and look at analytics. How many minutes are people spending on one page? If it's a few seconds before they go to another page, rather than a few minutes, then something's not quite right. They're either not getting the information, or there's too much information, or it feels clunky or old, or the layout's outdated. People read from left to right as well, so give them the important stuff on the left-hand side, the headings, the key bullet points, and really think about simplifying everything. If you've got time, Christy, why not send us your website and we can review it live?
Another part of that, I guess, that probably plays a part, Nick, is depending on what technology it's built in, right? If it's theme driven, if it's, sometimes some themes are updated more than others, right? Or they have more work than others that's done on them. So it will really depend. I think just an evaluation to start with of the website and where it stands is probably the best place, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I suppose it depends on the size of your business as well, and how much of your business comes from online sales, or how much you want to increase your online sales. Is it just a brochure site that's saying, showing who works there and giving people your contact details, or is it actually working towards your marketing goals? Is it selling your products for you? Just start asking questions about your own website. What is it actually doing for my business? And then make a decision on, well, what could it be doing? Could I add e-commerce to it? Could I add some level of automation to it? Does it need some video explainers of some of the things that we do, some walkthroughs of software as a service, Fintech, for example? I know companies like, there's the big company in Nottingham, Experian. Experian use a lot of e-learning based materials in their marketing, so it will walk you through what you need to do, what you expect, how quickly you see results, some of the complex calculations when calculating people's credit scores and things like that, you probably won't see as an end user, but it could interact with a ton of APIs in the background that pulls that information through, that allows you to do things like, calculate mortgage repayments based on your income and your expenditure. There might be things that you can upload that it will then calculate. Ask questions, really work out what it is that you want to achieve from your website, and look at your competitors and think, well, which bits of their site are they doing better? Start making notes and start working on a theory.
Brilliant, thanks Nick, that's great. So I think we'll move from the questions now. Thank you everybody for your questions. If there are others afterwards, of course, we'll give you our contact, you can follow up. As we mentioned at the start, there are going to be some resources that we'll follow up with, some various tools that you can obviously look at to test some of these principles, do a bit of research yourselves on where the site sits currently. There's a range in here, some I'm sure you'll recognize, others probably not. Again, as you go through those and you read some of the blogs, if there are questions, just give us a shout. Next slide, please. So what next? One of our sort of follow-up options that we're offering from the webinar today is an initial free UX audit. So Christy, might be good for yourself with your website. We'll spend some time having a look at where it sits, what our advice would be, whether it's worth a rebuild or whether it needs just some work doing on the current site. We'll go through all of the steps of the principles that Nick's mentioned today. And then hopefully we can add a bit of additional value afterwards. Feel free to obviously connect with us on social channels, etc., for the future webinars. We will follow up in a couple of weeks' time with our next one, and yeah, we hope to see you there. Thanks very much for joining.
Thanks everyone.
Bye now.